In celebration of spooky season, as Halloween is right around the corner, which I just had my birthday, August 17th. I don't think I shared that with you guys, but when it's around my birthday, I get really excited because the holidays are right around the corner and I love the holidays. And since spooky season is around the corner, me and my best friend and his fiance have been rewatching thrillers and horrors. We recently watched all of like the 28 days later. We rewatched all of the Blades, and I think we're gonna do Screams next. But on the topic of Blade, as we were rewatching all of them, there was two scenes that really stood out the most to me and made me want to dive into the psychology of Blade, right? I don't want to just talk about Blade, but I want to talk about his frame of mind, right? Why he does what he does. What got me to this was this scene right here, and I'm going to show it, was when he was looking down on Karen. The name of this character is Karen. By the way, spoilers, I mean, the film is like, what, nearly pushing 30 years old. So if you haven't seen it, go see it and then come back to this if you want to. Yeah. So Blade looks down on Karen and he kind of looks away from what I remember. And the only reason, right, that he saves her, because she just got bit by a vampire, is because this woman reminds him of his mother. But imagine if she didn't. He would have just gone on about his life, doing his thing, doing what Blade does, right? Doing vampires, cool vampire stuff. But he didn't, so he ended up saving her. The next scene that brought me to this idea where she walks into his room and he's just sitting in the dark, doing cool Blade things, looking into nothingness and the night. She tries to resonate with him and he doesn't really like that because, well, he's not really human. And so I'm just so invested into the psychology of Blade because unlike the other heroes in Marvel, right? At least off the top of my head, he is the only one that is constantly restricting himself, right? Blade has to take a serum so that he doesn't go over the edge, right? He has to take a serum to keep him grounded. So he's in this weird position where he's constantly self-restricting himself, and think about the toll or the frame of mind that must have on someone. And unfortunately, he was kind of born into this because he had a unique circumstance where he was turned right when his mom was like pregnant with him. So he's in a really, really unique spot. Unlike any other, he's not really a full vampire. In fact, he can't even turn someone into a vampire. I actually had to Google this. I want to read it for you right here. It says, no, Blade cannot turn people into vampires. He is I don't even know how to pronounce that word. Somebody pronounce it for me. Blank. Who is immune to vampirism, not a true vampire himself, and the conditions for his unique creation are highly specific and complex. While Blade can feed on people, which is often how a person becomes a vampire in the Blade universe, his own vampiric qualities are a result of his mother's exposure to a vampire while pregnant, a circumstance that cannot be easily replicated or transferred. So he's not really a complete vampire, but he's also not really a human. So he's kind of in this in-between kind of world. And this has been his whole life. And I'll say this, I think that Blade, the first Blade of the trilogy that came out, I think it was 98, does a really good job at putting you in the frame of mind of Blade. I think Wesley Snipes did a great job. Like psychologically speaking, this kind of shifts and changes when you go to the second one and the third one, just because they're going in a different direction. Like for example, in the second one, it's more of kind of flashy and flare-like, or maybe not flashy and flare-like, but you kind of get to see him more in a team dynamic kind of thing, which he doesn't like, and you can kind of see he kind of struggles with that. They go more into like comedy kind of stuff within the third one, but even then you see that if if it were up to him, he'd rather just be a solo kind of guy. I don't think Blade really trusts people. The only person that you could say that he truly trusts was his father figure, which would have been Whisper. Outside of that, he doesn't want to deal with people because he probably doesn't trust people. Blade is pretty mentally effed, and it was kind of against his will because of how he was born, unfortunately. I mean, he has vampire powers, right? Super, excuse the outside motorcycle if you can hear that. But he has like the superhuman strength, right? Every ability that a vampire would have, but he's still not a complete vampire. So his frame of mind has to be twisted to begin with. He's, again, in an in-between world. It's almost like he hates himself because at the same time, right? Blade hates vampires. He wants to do away with them, and at the same time, he is one of them. So he's like under this constant internal conflict that he has within himself. It's almost like a thirst that might not ever really get quenched because there's always going to be vampires out there, including himself. What if Blade gets to a point, and maybe there's a comic out there that I'm not familiar with, and if for you comic nerds, maybe you can enlighten me. But is there in any universe where Blade says, you know what, maybe I've killed all the vampires, I'm just gonna do away with myself to save the world or whatever? That would be trippy. Maybe that's out there where he's like, you know, I'm just gonna end it because I'm the last vampire, and then the world will be a better place without me and everyone else. Let me know if that is the case or not. But it's really an interesting thing to kind of dive into. And again, you can make the argument that Blade might have the most self-control in comparison to other Marvel superheroes. Maybe, you know, Batman has very disciplined and a lot of self-control. And in fact, I think Batman, and this isn't about Batman, but I think if I remember correctly, he has like a plan. If any of the heroes for whatever reason decide to go left field, like if Superman decided to just wake up one day and he was like, you know what, I don't want to be Superman, I want to kill everyone. Apparently Batman has like a plan to kill every single one of them if he wanted to, which is kind of interesting to dive into. But yeah, so maybe Batman has great self-control too. I don't know, maybe there's an argument to be made there, but it seems like Blade just has this, like, because he's constantly fighting himself. It's just, I think it's self-control on another level. Because what if for one day Blade just wants to let himself go and he's like, you know what, I'm tired of fighting this, I'm tired of taking this serum, it's taken such a toll on my mental health that I want to let myself go. And he kind of does that, and then he becomes the villain that he's always hated. And again, maybe this has played out in some comic in some universe, and if so, I think that'd make for a cool story. And then maybe even within that, he finds his way back, or somebody helps him to kind of get his frame of mind back together, and he decides he doesn't want to kill everyone, he just wants to kill vampires. I don't know, it just kind of seems to me that at the end of it all, Blade would want to unalive himself, because at the end of the day, he's still a vampire. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? And Blade, in a way, and I'm gonna do a video on the psychology of Spawn, but it's kind of similar to Spawn in that they have this loneliness about them and this rage about them, and they're kind of left alone in the dark because they don't literally fit in anywhere. And so they're kind of in this anti-gray area where they're not really heroes, but they're not really villains. They're just kind of in this gray area, which makes for very fascinating and intriguing characters, right? Blade embodies being an outsider, which a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people can relate to being an outsider, myself included. I think, you know, characteristics like these really bring a lot of these characters to life, is the fact that they are relatable, even in the midst of their edginess or darkness. He kind of represents fighting this struggle while still having an urge to save people in a weird or odd way. So he has this like extreme edginess, he's dark, he's flawed, and people are drawn to this. It's very compelling and intriguing. And I think, again, when you really start to tap into his frame of mind, I think Blade is very twisted and dark and demented. Yeah, and I thought this would just be a fun idea. I think I mentioned Spawn earlier. I'm gonna do the psychology of Spawn next. I thought this would be fun because I've been doing a lot of other content, and I just kind of want to, you know, in my description, I tell you guys I'm into politics, anime, and all this stuff. I'm like, I need to do more of this on my channel because I like doing stuff like this. So I'm gonna do Spawn next, but I have to watch I want to do Spawn justice. Big fan of Spawn. And I've seen so many good things about the 90s animated cartoon of Spawn. So I'm gonna watch all that. I'm actually gonna start tonight. And then once I watch that, with my best friend ChatGPT giving me some more insight and watching videos, I'm gonna do a deep dive into the psychology of Spawn, which I think is even more darker than Blade, to be honest with you. And I'm excited to do that. And so, what do you guys think? Do you guys think Blade is a hero? Do you think that he's someone you would trust or not? Tell me your comments down below. Tell me what you guys think of the video, and I will see you guys next time. And I'm excited for the psychology of Spawn. Later.